a critical exchange unfolds, shedding light on the tensions between law and political power. Representative Slotkin presses Secretary Noam on a crucial question: whether the Department of Homeland Security has deported American citizens or lawful immigrants. This isn't just about border enforcement. It's about the protection of constitutional rights for everyone, regardless of citizenship. As the conversation delves deeper, we see the complexity of balancing national security with the fundamental rights that make up the very fabric of our democracy.
But what I'm concerned about is that you've taken the mandate to close off the border beyond going after, as you say, the, quote, most dangerous illegal immigrants. I'm a CIA officer. I worked my entire life to protect the homeland. If someone's here illegally, they need to not be here. They've committed a crime by being here. They need to go back to wherever they're from. But my concern is that either through sloppiness or intent, you have gone far beyond going after the, quote, most dangerous illegal immigrants and gone into legal immigrants who were given the ability to be here, and even American citizens. And when I think about that, you know, there are lots of people in this country, including me, who have families who fled this kind of environment where they have no rights, where they have no due process, where they don't have habeas corpus. So while I'll be the first to say, coming from a state that was won by Trump, that there is a mandate to do something about the border, I think it is absolute dangerous overreach to go beyond that and start picking up American citizens and people who have the legal right to be here, lawful immigrants who have done everything right. So first and foremost, do you acknowledge that your department has made some mistakes, any mistakes, in going after either American citizens or legal immigrants here in the time that you've been in office?
We have not deported any U.S. citizens
detained?
Or people get interviewed. If they get interviewed and they go through that process and if we find that they're U.S. citizens or legal immigrants, they stay in the United States.
Have you deported
we have to
any
go through the vetting process.
Have any American citizens, including children, been deported during your time in office?
We have children that mothers have chosen to keep with them. So those
by my count, you have 10 American citizens, including children with cancer, who have been deported out of the country. I understand you're saying it's their choice.
But it's hard to imagine
a small child having a choice. But have you gone after legal immigrants? Again, your standard in your opening statement was the most dangerous illegal immigrants. Does that include PhD students and master's students at colleges across the country, unarmed? Are they the most dangerous illegal when they have status and no weapons?
I don't decide who gets status through a student program. The Department of State decides that, and we enforce it.
Oh, come on.
That's what our Department of Homeland Security does.
I just would offer that, again, I have no qualms with going after folks who are here illegally. That is not my concern. That was part of my job, was to prevent people from coming here illegally in a former life. My concern is you're sending a chill down the spine of America by going after people who either have legal status or American citizens. And when my colleagues ask you about habeas corpus, and you say, literally, we can review the tape, that you believe it's a right the president has, you sat here in front of all of us and swore an oath to the Constitution, and that is not at all what habeas corpus is. It is a right that we all get, that American citizens get, that people who are in the United States legally have. So my concern is it's complete overreach. I don't think American citizens, even those who voted for Trump, believe that you should be able to just grab someone off the street, sloppy, who has the legal right to be here, and certainly an American citizen. And I just am concerned that while you say you're going after the most dangerous folks, what you're actually doing is going after folks for political reasons, right? A PhD student that's unarmed is not at the top of the list.
And we're not deporting U.S. citizens, and we're not deporting people who have legal status here.
10 American citizens
if the children
have
gone with their parents, it's because their parents wanted them with them. So let me ask you another question
about cybersecurity. You know, you've cut $500 million from the budget. What specific programs are you cutting? Because there are programs that really aid states and locals that we depend on for cybersecurity. And we know that right now, while we may have good security in the federal government, if you are a local state official, you're depending on the federal government. So have you cut the ISAC program, the program to states and locals on cybersecurity.
The president's recommended budget has a reduction in $491
Does it cut
million.
that program? I've heard the
and what
talking
it's
point.
doing is
Does
putting
it cut the
CISA
program?
back on mission.
You
and it's
can't say
ensuring that
this is the most
cybersecurity is going to be
cybersecure.
strengthened.
You cannot say it's the most cybersecure administration if you're cutting the program to my state and to your state.
It will
and if you
be
look
when
on
we-
record, that's what you've cut.
What we witnessed wasn't just a heated exchange, it was a stark demonstration of what happens when policy shifts from being about the law to being about power. Representative Slotkin's pointed questions to Secretary Noam regarding whether the Department of Homeland Security has deported American citizens or lawful immigrants weren't about trying to trip him up. They were about something more fundamental, ensuring the constitutional promises of due process are upheld. Slotkin's follow-up wasn't some tricky gotcha question. It was the obvious one that follows from every constitutional guarantee. Who is being removed from our country? Under what authority? And are they receiving the legal processes that our Constitution guarantees? To make sense of the situation, there are three essential points we need to understand. First, the legal foundation. The Fifth Amendment doesn't merely protect citizens, it guarantees the rights of persons. The Supreme Court has consistently held that non-citizens present in the U.S. are entitled to certain due process protections in removal proceedings. The writ of habeas corpus, a tool enshrined in our Constitution, isn't just a vague ritual. It's a legal mechanism that allows individuals to request judicial review of their detention or removal. While habeas corpus doesn't guarantee automatic release, it does provide a critical judicial check on executive action. When a cabinet secretary promises to follow the Constitution, that promise isn't just a platitude, it's a commitment to respect the procedures that have been legally established, not to treat them as optional inconveniences. Second, the reality of the process and where things go wrong. There are established procedures in place for asylum seekers and other non-citizens, including credible fear screenings, placement in removal proceedings, access to legal counsel, even when they can't afford it, and a chance to present their case before an immigration judge. However, the government also employs expedited removal processes, particularly at or near the border, which are designed to fast-track certain removals. These processes are meant to be governed by law and subject to judicial review. But what Representative Slotkin described, people who had gone through credible fear screenings, had appointments, and still found themselves removed or detained in foreign prisons without access to legal representation or family, suggests that procedural shortcuts are being taken. These shortcuts are inconsistent with the due process guarantees meant to ensure fairness. When individuals are treated as though their appointments are traps rather than opportunities for legal recourse, due process is being undermined. Third, the human impact. This isn't just abstract legal theory, it has real consequences for people's lives. The deportation of someone with legal status or of a U.S. resident child doesn't merely break some bureaucratic rule, it disrupts their education, medical care, and family stability, and often sends them back to environments where they face real physical danger. Asking for a simple proof of life check from the Department of Homeland Security isn't a media stunt, it's a basic human request that should be easy for an administration to fulfill if they truly respect the law and order they claim to value. So, what should we take away from this exchange beyond the frustration and anger it evokes? First, always follow the process. Constitutional protections exist for a reason. Habeas corpus, the right to counsel, and the other due process rights aren't just bureaucratic formalities. They are the safeguards that prevent mistakes, abuses, and irreparable harm. If a government department is cutting corners to meet political objectives, it's critical that courts, inspectors general, and Congress step in to stop it. Second, effective oversight matters. Congressional inquiries, like the one led by Representative Slotkin, create a public record that holds officials accountable. Judicial rulings create legal boundaries that must be respected. Civil society organizations can document abuses and bring legal cases, while local officials can push back when federal actions threaten their communities. The combined efforts of these various entities serve as a deterrent against potential abuse and ensure that the government's actions are in line with the law. Third, we must recognize that policy decisions are never purely administrative. They carry moral weight. Yes, a nation has a legitimate interest in securing its borders, but border enforcement that violates the rights of citizens or strips vulnerable people of their due process rights is counterproductive. It erodes public trust, alienates communities that law enforcement and intelligence agencies rely on, and wastes valuable resources on removals that may be legally dubious. A border enforcement strategy that sweeps up citizens or deprives people of their rights will ultimately hurt the nation, not protect it. If you want to take action right now, here's what you can do. Contact your representatives and demand an independent review of current deportation practices. Ask for transparency about how many people are being detained, how many of them are found to be U.S. citizens or lawful residents, and and what legal procedures they are entitled to, support legal aid organizations that help detainees assert their rights, and demand that the Department of Homeland Security release clear guidelines for using expedited removal and cooperate with courts and consular authorities to ensure that people are not disappeared without family or legal representation being notified. This exchange wasn't just about a single question or a single argument. It revealed a broader choice between a department that defends the Constitution and one that prioritizes a political agenda. If you believe in due process, in protecting the vulnerable, and in a government that is held accountable to the law rather than political theater, keep paying attention. Share this conversation with those who need to hear it, and if you want to support sustained independent accountability reporting, consider joining us on Patreon. We'll continue tracking the record, following the victims of these policies, and explaining what moments like this really mean for your rights and your neighbor's safety.